Hi, Donna here. Today on the Better 2 podcast, I sit down with Linn Purdon from Australia to discuss how she sees energy. She sees energy like colors, the colors of life. For Star Wars fans, it's kind of like the Force. And for those who remember the movie The Matrix, it's kind of like the code when you are plugged in. You see everything as it is, but in reality, it's numbers. Well, she sees the energy. She's had this gift since she was young. And when she thought about telling her mom, she realized it was going to cause nothing but problems. So she quashed it. And this took her on a really incredible journey. So stick around today, and we're going to discuss conforming to what other people's expectations are, playing with others' energy, and trying to fit in to be normal, something that we all can relate to, even if you don't see energy. Hi, guys. Donna here with the Better 2 podcast. Today I am interviewing someone all the way from Australia. Today I'm interviewing Linn Purdon. Of course, I just slaughtered it because I'm saying the French pronunciation. But she is a fabulous intuitive energy worker that I met in a group on Facebook. And I would like to go ahead and introduce Lynn to you and let her tell you about herself. Take it away, Lynn.
Oh, thank you so much. Wonderful to be here. And so where do I start? Let's go right back. So, as a very, very young child, I have memories of it being about 2 to 3, of playing with vibration and energy streams. I saw everything as colorful, vibrating, palpating energy streams, and my words don't do justice, and I get quite frustrated that I don't have a vocabulary to really describe what it is I see. And so I thought this was normal. I thought everybody could see life as these energetic streams and cells and matrix all around. And I eventually started talking about it, and my mother was horrified and saw me as being demon possessed and evil and treated me that way. And so I learned very quickly that it wasn't a good idea to be displaying that ability. And instead, what I did was I twisted off and I consciously twisted my own energy away from that ability as best as I could, and spent the rest of my childhood studying other people's energy and the way they were holding their energy, the way they moved, the way that they reacted to other people's energy. And I mean, it's funny when I look back at it now, but I had memories in kindergarten, particularly in kindergarten, doing this and trying on other people's energy, literally putting it on and using myself to act from that place in the vain attempt that, one, no one would know that I could see it, and two, to try to work out how to be normal, you know.
But what here's the thing: what is normal? If you that is beyond normal. That's different than being a medium. That's different than being psychic. I mean, that is being way in tuned to the universe, to the world. I mean,
Totally.
I've never really talked to anybody that has had that ability, and I know you do because we've talked outside of this and we've talked in your group, and the fact is, for your mom not to see this as a positive thing. I mean, I can understand. I've had people that I've talked to before, but how did it affect you to play in somebody else's energy?
Well, at the time, I mean, of course, I'm doing all of this now in retrospect, looking back at it with all the
Right.
knowledge and understanding that I do have now. At the time, it made me very ill. I was constantly sick as a child, and as an adult, got to the point where it was life and death illness. And I recognised why that was the case was that I was literally twisting away from my very own life essence as I was trying to contort myself into a shape that would fit whatever perception I had of whatever was normal or acceptable in whatever situation I was in. And I found school extremely difficult because of that. because of course there wasn't one particular approved way of being. It depended who
Right.
you were around, So I was
Right.
constantly twisting and shaping, and yes, it certainly wasn't fun, and I wouldn't recommend it.
Did it, did that distract from your schoolwork because you were always
Twisting and shaping. Well,
yeah.
funnily enough, no. I actually was a high achieving student, but that was much more out of fear than it was out of delight or joy of the studying. It became very very apparent to me very quickly that the best way to protect myself was to go undetected. Was to
Yeah.
do everything right as best as I could. So because I was constantly living with this fear that I was going to be detected as evil and demon possessed. And I grew up in a cult religion, and which is where that sort of thinking obviously came from. And so as a young person, I was always waiting for to be struck by lightning, or God to appear and
Yeah.
cut me
Yeah.
down. And so it was like, well, if I can twist myself enough and look right enough, and that included doing all the things that were expected of me, hopefully I would go under the radar and not be caught as a demon, pretty much.
Well, what's interesting when you think about that statement about you twisting yourself to make yourself look normal and everything, eh,
Mhm.
we all talk about, especially as adult women, especially, we talk about the fact that we need to be true to ourselves.
Mm.
And as a child, no matter how much, you're always trying to people please in most cases. So when did you decide that it was okay to be true to yourself? And I will go
Oh,
back and ask you more about the religion thing, but let's go with when did you
how long
decide to
did
be
it
true to
take?
yourself?
Oh my goodness. It was years and years and years and years. I was well into my adulthood, and I'm looking at it now. It would well, when I was 40 was when I became life and death ill. Western medicine couldn't do anything more for me. They just had no answers. And I had lost a lot of weight. I was really skeletal, and I had gone to lots of alternative medicine, and everybody was beautiful, and they all had these wonderful intentions of wanting to help. So it wasn't their lack at all. It was that everything I tried made me worse and made me sicker and sicker and sicker. Now, I actually can see that as a blessing now. Of course, it was difficult at the time. I felt terrified. But it got to a point, and I remember vividly in bed, because I was bedridden, I couldn't get out of bed. And it was like, I just realized in that moment, okay, you've got two choices here. You can take the physical body off and go back into the full energetic form, which was quite inviting. And, it would have been fine to do that. And I really got that. There was no judgment with either choice. Or I could really embrace this ability and see what happened. And I remember sitting there, it was almost like I did a pros and cons list. It was very calm space. When you consider what I was considering,
Yeah.
it was this really quiet, calm space. And it was as though I was doing a shopping list. And it just occurred to me in that moment, well, what have I got to lose? If I'm thinking of taking the body off anyway and just going back in, why don't I give this a go? Because I can take the body off another time.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, I can do that. And so, yes, it was into my 40s. And I often say I'd love to have the story that I woke up the next day and I was all better and everything. I mean, it wasn't like that at all. It took years and years of me very quietly claiming it back, experimenting just with me, putting it first, using it as my authority. So I wasn't looking out for answers outside of me anymore. I was going in and connecting. And then eventually, my life turned around, and then there was a whole nother transition, because then was I brave enough to talk about it? Was I brave enough? Because of course I'd been told that
Yeah.
it was demonic and it was evil, and the last thing in the world I wanted to do was hurt anybody with it. So that took another couple of years to move through all of that. So I think that was a long answer to your question.
No, no, that's a perfectly good answer, because I think, that it's a very important answer, that we know that you didn't wake up just one morning and you were fine, because
No.
so many of us are looking for that quick fix.
Yes.
Oh, that pill that's going to make everything better, or, and life doesn't work that way. The amazing thing is, we want to embrace our passion. We want to have a job that fulfills us. We want to have a life that's fulfilling. But in so many cases, we don't do that. We try to appease everybody else. We try to, the big thing, I don't know about over in Australia, but the big thing here is when you're a single woman, and I went through this with my mom for a brief period and my grandmother's, when are you going to have kids?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Well, I chose not to have biological kids. I had stepkids. Well, those aren't your kids.
Oh.
If I adopted a child, they would be my kid. But because they were just stepkids, they were not my kids. It was long, but this is a process that people, even though I embraced it, they did not. And what I'm getting at is you can't live for other people's expectations. And so you were trying to live based on other people's expectations. So I think it's a very valuable lesson that all of us can learn, that we can't look outside of ourselves and be somebody else. Which is, when you think about it, think about all I don't know if you're on Instagram a lot, but there's a lot of fake images now. I mean, before it used to be photoshopped on a magazine. Now anybody can Photoshop themselves. But you're losing a reality. You're losing a bit of reality. And if you're conforming to something else, what are you taking away from you as a person?
Totally. And now that I'm at this end of the journey, I'm fully embracing my ability, what I see is that we are all born with a unique energetic blueprint that I call your inner brilliance. You can call it anything, but they were the words that came to me. And I often explain it as, imagine that you've got 3 brand new babies just been born, and they're lined up together, and you look at them, and most of us can acknowledge the divinity in them, that they're just, at that point, they're more energy than they are flesh, is how I see it. And you can recognize that they are just oozing that. However, you can also see that they're very different, that they're very unique right from that first day. And from the energetic perspective, what I say is we were designed that way. We were meant to be that way. And when I watch somebody who is aligned to their inner brilliance, their energy moves in this beautiful, harmonic, flowing, crossover, spherical, matrixy pattern that's full of movement and light and sparkles and lots of pulsing. Because the pulsing, as I see it, it's like an energetic breath. It's the actual energy breath, or like the heartbeat and the blood pumping through a body. It's the same sort of thing energetically. And when I see somebody who is doing what I used to do, and it was twisting off, trying to fit into a cultural story, I call them, because if you go to a different culture, it'll be a different story. If you go back 10 years, it'll be a different story. They're all arbitrary. Just someone made them up, and for some reason, they've held in the culture. And when we start to do that to fit in, and of course we're encouraged to do that as children,
yes,
then what we do is that we start to literally contort away. It looks twisted to me. So, and then you can imagine, often talk about it, if you imagine there's an enormous big shower head above you that is flowing golden, glorious light, that's full of the spectrum of things like love and joy and freedom and well-being, because that's what, when we come into that inner brilliance space, into that alignment, that's what I see happens. It's like we come right in underneath that shower that is ours, and our unique inner brilliance is the thing that we line up with, that brings us right fully under that. And so every time we try to be something else other than that uniqueness that we were designed to be, we move out of it. Sometimes a lot, sometimes a little.
Yeah.
And of course, that's what happened for me. I got so out of that. I actually didn't have enough of that fueling me, which is why I got to that point of, well, do I take this suit off so I can go fully back into it? Or do I find a way to have the suit on and be aligned to it?
When you talk about, I don't know many people that can see energy. My husband used to be able to see auras sometimes.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever actually seen energy is when I have gotten a massage and
Mm.
somebody is working around my head. And recently when somebody was working on my back, I usually will see purple, like a really bright indigo purple or indigo blue in a purple, and they're like a lava light, and I'm watching them move. And the last massage therapist that worked on me, that he was like, "You can actually see that." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, He's like, "I've been told that that can happen, but I've never heard from anybody that it has." But I what you do, I consider a gift. I mean, to be able to see the matrix, for lack of a better way to put it, is an amazing thing. And I think if we could all, I had the last podcast I did, we were talking about the fact that we have labels and
Mm.
everybody bases everything on a label, but why do we need labels? I mean, we all are energy. The one thing
Mm.
that actually does kind of tie in with you is, look at the Star Wars series. Everybody looks at Star Wars and thinks, oh, it's just, when you really think about the Force, those first three movies, and you're talking about the Force, it's all energy. It's that thing that binds us together, but people don't always see that. So, I mean, what you
Mm.
have is this incredible gift to be able to see that. And how many people have you helped heal through making this choice of
Mm.
owning yourself and saying who you are, you
Yes.
know?
Oh, absolutely. And there's two things that come to mind with that. One is that when I say I see energy, I like to define that a little more fully. Yes, I see it visually, but as I have embraced it, all my senses have come online. So I hear it, I smell it, I can taste it. Sorry, my
That's
dog's going to
I
have
have a
me say
dog too, so we're all good. We're all good.
now. Do you want?
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's
Can you still hear? I'll keep going.
I can hear you. It's fine. I mean, we are
It's
still
really
in a
quite funny
pandemic.
because
Do I?
I think they'll stop. They were so quiet. They were asleep, so I didn't close the door. I thought that was fine. They're asleep. Yes, so I use it all and extra. I mean, there are other senses that are coming on board that I don't even know what to call them. For instance, things like, because everything is energy, particularly when I'm working and I'm off in that world, I'm really allowing myself to be fully in that energetic space. Trees will move into what I would call my body. And I can see the world through a tree's perspective, or water will wash through me and I can feel and talk to water, the essence of water, or earth, or people, so I don't know what sense you call that, what that is. But these sorts of things are happening. And the other lovely thing is that it constantly evolves. And I think that if there were the two main points that I'd ever want to tell somebody, one is that you're unique and claim that, and you're born that way. And the other is that we are born to expand. It is the nature of the universe. It's the nature of energy is to expand. So expect things to change, expect movement, expect expansion, and line up with that. Because I think some of personally, for me, a lot of my illness was around holding it, trying to make everything stay still in this perfection of whatever it was that I was trying to achieve at that time. And of course, we never meant to be stationary like that. We're constantly meant to be expanding. So there was another thing that the dog's barking now.
That's okay. Well,
I'm not sure. I was going with it now.
that's okay. We still have time, and it may come back. The thing about
Yeah.
the one thing you mentioned, though, is perfection. I mean, that is something that we all are so conscious, trying to focus on making it perfect. And I could have launched my podcast and tried to get everything in line, and I can tell you of every glitch I've had with every episode. And this is my fourth episode. I hope this is the best one yet, but it's a learning curve. And for once in my life, I'm not going to sit there and hold so tight to it. I held on to a book for 30 years because I was trying to create perfection. And it took my husband going to dialysis and sitting in Barnes and Noble with nothing to do with my laptop, that one of the side characters in the story is like, "Hey, I got something for you." And so I sat down and wrote. And then they were closing the store and I knew some of the workers, and she's like, "We're having one new writer's night." Oh, really? Let me publish it. All right. So I have 4 different versions of the book that have been edited in different covers. And finally, it's finished. Finally, the book is finished. But it took the push to do
Mm.
that. And then after I finished that one, a company was offering a contract. So then I sat down and wrote a book in a month. And I didn't like the contract, so I passed. But I ended up expanding that book, and I've gotten great reviews on it. Now, my next 2 books I'm still working on. But the fact of the matter is, I got out of my own head with perfection. Now I'm dealing with imposter syndrome. That's a whole different thing. But you understand what I'm getting at. If you have to step away from perfection, and I think we all get
Yeah.
trapped in it, whether it be about our marriage, our job, our
Mm.
family, we all look for this perfection. And the thing is, there is no such thing.
Mm. No. And when I watch the energy of it, I mean, that's the thing that is so telling to me. Perfection in its nature of its energy, it closes everything down. It stops the flow. It stops that lovely breathing. I mean, not completely, but it tightens everything up. And so in the very act of trying to be perfect, you actually are moving yourself away from where you think you want to be.
Well, and when you think about that, there's a lot of fear in perfection.
Oh,
Because
yes.
then you have all the fear of failure, the fear that your marriage may fall apart, that you're not doing a good job. So you have all these little bits in there. But nobody looks at fear and perfection as being integrated. But it's very
Oh,
true.
yes, totally.
Because fear
Yes,
can just shut you down easily.
it does. Yes, totally. It's that very constricting versus the lovely flow that when we are in that expansion, when we're in, because what happens is that when we do align to that inner brilliance, and often refer to it as building alignment muscles, inner brilliant alignment muscles, because we've been learning, I mean, we get actively taught to twist out of our inner brilliance,
Oh, yeah.
our uniqueness, actively
Yes.
by the people really close to us, but then the whole culture. And so we learn muscles, just as I did. I mean, I had really strong contortion muscles by the time I got to 40, like
Ooh.
practice and practice and practice. And so now I am consciously doing the reverse, softening those ones, letting some movement come, and then coming back into my uniqueness. And there's no perfection in that. Well, there is a perfection in my uniqueness. There's a
Hmm.
perfection in uniqueness,
Yeah.
which is contrary to what we define perfection in the
Right.
culture as. You know?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, when I look back, my mother loved to tell the story. I don't know why. I was in pre-kindergarten. So this is like 5 years old, 4 years old, somewhere in there. Um, and she apparently got called to school because I wasn't doing my work. And so in front of the teacher, my mother asked me why I wasn't doing my work. And I know this sounds very snotty, but then I think about it, it was like, this is very much speaking to who you are as a child. And I just looked at her supposedly and said, I can't help it if I already know it and everybody else is stupid. Well, of course, I got chastised for that.
Mm,
And my mom, of course, continued to, she would tell the story over and over. But I look back at that story and it's like, so that's who I truly was. And somewhere I
yeah,
lost that self esteem during
absolutely.
growing up because I was not, I wouldn't say in the way you said it, but I was conforming. I was trying to be what she wanted me to be.
Mm,
And that never
mhm.
worked.
No,
Not for
it
long
never
anyway.
does. And picking up on that, I spend a lot of time with children and watching their energy, and they do know it all.
Hmm.
They're meant to. We all do. We're talked into the fact that we need to learn something outside of ourselves. We actually can and have access to everything to flow through us. And so I believe that when you said that, you really meant it because you knew it to be true. I've
Well,
already got it all.
they wanted to they wanted to advance me in 1 grade, and she said no. And then I went to a school that was advanced. And the next year, that school ran out of funding. So I went to a different school and I'm doing the same exact books as I was
Mm.
doing before. So what does she think? I'm not doing well. And she's like, well, why aren't you? You've done this all before. You should be making straight A's. I'm bored out of my
Yeah, yeah,
mind.
yeah, yeah.
And I think
Yes,
that's what we don't look at kids. Not all kids learn the same way nowadays.
no.
I can only imagine teaching homeschooling kids right now during the pandemic. That has to be insane. But not all kids learn the same way, and not all kids are made to become a doctor or to become a lawyer. There's certain things that we need to allow the creativity to flow,
Absolutely. Totally.
and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
That's another
Mm-hmm.
thing that we don't necessarily foster, and those are the things we have to foster instead of
Also,
bullying.
one of the wonderful experiences I get to have is to, okay, I don't have really accurate words for this, but to vibrationally teach children so that I link to my inner brilliance, I link to their inner brilliance, and create a matrix, so to speak, and telepathically allow downloads that, and most children, especially when they're young, just suck that up,
Oh yeah.
because I know it's true, and then work from that space. So it's like collaboration, energetic, vibrational, human collaboration in their learning. Totally different picture, totally different than trying to um, cover all the subjects we think that they should be knowing, whether it's right for and in alignment for them or not.
Right.
Mm.
And I think if we had more teachers that were willing to embrace a child knowing and understanding,
Mm.
it would
Mm.
be a much different environment that we're
Totally.
seeing in the world.
Very much
Um,
so.
so to circle back a little bit, you mentioned you mentioned you grew up in a cult.
It was a cult religion. I'm not quite sure how you would describe it. But there were lots of rules as to what we could or couldn't do, who we could and couldn't see, what we could and couldn't wear. It was very isolating. And so it came down to that I really didn't see anybody or talk to anybody that wasn't part of it. And so as I grew up, of course, that was the only world I really knew. And then when I was about 12, my family was excommunicated from this religion. And that was really very, very confusing for me, because they then went on to do everything that I had been taught
Not to.
was going to kill
Yeah.
me, and I wasn't, all those horrible things. They went on to do it in huge amounts.
And you're like, but
And
but
I can sort of get it as an adult now. It was the
yeah.
backlash they'd been, and then but as a 12-year-old looking on at this madness, again, and so I'd spent all these years trying on and doing all this energy thing to fit,
Yeah.
and then suddenly I had this new energy thing to fit, and oh man, so it was really crazy.
It had to
Totally.
completely turn your world upside down when you were excommunicated, because now you see a different the things, I mean, like you're saying, the things you couldn't do, suddenly you can, but just the interaction with people, I imagine, had to be totally just foreign.
Well, it was quite bizarre, because as much as we could go out, and I mean, the difference was we weren't actually all living together, which I think is like the standard cult where you're all in that one sort of community and you can't go outside of it. We were living in regular housing. However, we couldn't socialize with people who weren't in this religion. So as much as I could go to school, I couldn't talk about it, and I had to go to school and come back, and and only then. It was
Wow.
just mad. The whole thing was just really mad. So it was like I was already playing this contorted energy game. And then on top of that, there were all these other layers where I had to pretend when I was at school that this other stuff wasn't going on. And then it got to a point where, of course, we're excommunicated. And then there was this other layer of, well, this had been the case, and then this was the case, and now this is the case. But we don't
Wow.
talk about it.
Yeah. Wow. I can't imagine how confusing that would have been. I mean,
pretty crazy making, yeah.
and then okay, so then you're also coming in, you're starting to roll into the age of being a teenager, so then you have dating and you have friends, and if you're not used to any of that, I mean, I went to an all-girl Catholic high school my first 2 years in high school. and we had no boys. So the only time we ever had boys around was if we went to tri-school mass, and then it was like the boys were sitting in the middle and the girls were on eyeing all the guys. But otherwise, there was no boys around except for the male streaker that would run through the breezeway occasionally. I was always in class and missed this, but never fail. But so then transitioning to a school where no uniforms and suddenly you have guys, it was bizarre. So I can only imagine how mine was bad. I can only imagine how tiring and confusing it had to be for you. It had to be insane.
Absolutely. It was. I remember going to a concert. I must have been about 16, I guess, maybe a little younger, and putting on the right exterior, but standing in the line waiting to get in, and then all the noise and the music and everyone, drinking and doing whatever. And I'm trying to mimic it, thinking this is insane, because the energy was just so contorted and so crazy and so out of control.
Who did you go see?
Oh man, I can't remember.
Okay.
There you go. That's how crazy it was.
But I mean, it had to be sensory overload for you, I imagine.
It was incredibly. It was so full on. Yeah, and I didn't do it again. I didn't. And it did get to a point where I remember that I would consciously take the New Year's Eve shift at work and things like that, so I didn't have to, because none of that made any sense to me either. I mean, let's face it, the culture made no sense to me. None of it made any sense to me. The whole thing, because I'm looking at it from this vibrational thing, none of this is adding up to me. I don't understand. It was hugely confusing.
So since we've dabbled with the Matrix a couple of times, have you seen the movie? I'm sure you have.
People ask me that. I have seen bits of it. I haven't seen the whole thing, but the bits that I have seen, I really related to.
The one thing that I've seen it a couple of times. The first time I watched it, though, I mean, there's some violence in it, but after I watched it, I remember looking at my friend going, so how do we know if any of this is real?
Yeah.
Because it really does pose that for you. And you're like,
totally.
And it goes a lot to what you've said. I mean, when you look at that movie, everything in the faux world is all numbers and code, and they're all plugged in. And so, that's got to be a lot like what you're seeing, except not code, but, we're all plugged into this. We're all plugged in and connected now. So
more to the way that I would describe it is that I see that we're sitting in what looks to me like an ocean of vibrating cells that are moving in like spheres within spheres within spheres within spheres within spheres. And depending on where we look and how we translate that is what we experience. So it's a bit like the light I've got on behind the camera here is going to show you it. If I turn that off, you'll get a different picture of what you're seeing on the screen. It's very similar that if you can imagine, you've got this huge universal light, it's going to put shadows in certain places and lights. And depending where you're standing in relationship to that, you're going to see something very different. Great example of this. I was doing dishes at my kitchen sink and I looked out towards my back fence and I was convinced there was a rabbit sitting at the back of my fence.
Okay.
And so I'm doing the dishes thinking, how sweet is that? I really love the thought that the rabbit feels safe enough to be there, and just thinking about the rabbit, making up stories about the rabbit, loving the rabbit. And then the light shifted and I realized it was a stone.
Oh.
So, but then I thought then, how interesting. That's exactly how it is.
But I was also going to say, when you think about that, that's also how you grew up.
Yes.
Because you were always contorting.
Yes.
So how do we, my husband used to pose this question, and yes, he was married to somebody who's intuitive, but he was intuitive himself, but he would always pose the question, how do you know? It's like, don't even. After a certain point, I was just like, don't even. And his other favorite expression was, go with the flow. It's like, really? Always. And he was not one to go with the flow, but it's one of those things where I give you advice. I don't necessarily take it.
You have to take it.
But I mean, so how do you know that that wasn't at that perception point what you saw?
Totally,
Especially
totally.
since you see energy. I mean, how,
Yes,
we can go really here. How do you know
yes,
that the
it
reincarnation of
wasn't.
that bunny?
Uh-huh, totally. Oh, exactly. So what I more and more understand is that the vibrational world is interlayered. I mean, we think very much of one thing after the next in a more linear way. And I see that there's lots of parallels and crossovers and expansion happening, which is quite different to what the human brain makes of this step-by-step process. So I think it's absolutely that we can be interpreting, that we use our senses to translate an energetic experience, and then we make a story about that.
Okay.
So it's like when we hear something, it's a vibration, and then we translate it with our ears and come out with a meaning for it.
Okay.
So if the dog barks, there's the vibration, and then I interpret it. It's the dog barking. So it could be a whole. I've had. I don't want to. Sometimes I scare your listeners, but
If they're
I've
listening
had
to this, I highly
experiences.
doubt they're going to be scared.
Well, I have had experiences of being present with two parallel timelines, living in both of them instantaneously,
Okay.
which is very similar to this, where I can, just like you were talking about, I can see and I'm living it, and I can feel both of them happening at once, where there's a slightly different interpretation going on at that time.
Cool.
So yeah, well, yes. I mean, I guess I said scared because at the time I was.
No, well, we have the Theological Society over in Wheaton, and they have a labyrinth there. And the closest thing that I've experienced, and I've walked that labyrinth, I can't tell you how many times. One day I went and walked it, and as I was coming out, I stopped. And it was like watching things just click into place. It was like time was moving in a very surreal way, and everything was kind of blocked, like in block chunks, and it was just kind of falling into place. And I'm like, what in the world? And it was going so pulsing, like you were saying. It was the weirdest thing in the world. And it's only happened the one time, but it was just stranger than anything. And I got back in the car, and my husband's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, just had the weirdest experience in the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I mean, that most likely is how you see things a lot of the time.
It is absolutely, and then because of the expansion, what will happen is a new experience will come on board, like the tree moving in, or like that parallel thing. And for a little while, I can be a bit unsettled until I keep up with the expansion, and then it integrates, and then it just becomes my normal, is what I see. And I think really, I get the sense that if we could relax into those things for all of us, there is that, like I said, we're meant to expand. So if we can embrace that and go with that, we make our journey so much easier and more magical.
Do you think the people that, and I'm sure you've dealt with people that have depression, serious depression,
Mm-hmm.
do you see their energy differently? I mean, are they not embracing the expanse? Is that part of the reason why that they may be depressed, is because they can't keep up with the changes and the transformation
Oh.
of energy?
Look, it's all individual, of course,
Of
but there
course.
can be a number of things that I've seen. One is can be just so much compression. So a little like I'd got to, where I had contorted so much, there was no energetic breath coming in.
Right.
And if you've not got that coming through, what is the obvious thing that you do? There's
Right.
nothing coming in to keep you buoyant. So it can be that you've twisted away from your uniqueness so much. Because when you're in that uniqueness and when you're embracing that, you are literally being renewed and refueled every moment. That is literally what's going on energetically. So the more you get away from that, the less of that you're having. And so getting depressed with that makes lots and lots of sense. The other thing can be that, yes, that you've got so much going on, your energy has become so expanded, but you're holding in really tight. And so the differential there, and this is another thing that I did, I ended up in a lot of pain, and from that I had all of this expanded energy, and I had a pipe that was so tiny for this energy to go
Yeah.
through. And then the constant pain led to a sense of hopelessness and depression. At least that's how I added it up. But I think in retrospect, really, it was because there was not so much, there wasn't the life force coming through.
Well, I think that's a, what you're saying there is very true. And there's a card in my Cosmic Tarot deck that one of my friends constantly gets when she's overworked and she's stressed, and it's the Five of Swords. And in the deck, the guy is laying flat out and his hands are staked and his feet are staked, or they're right by his hands and his feet. And then right above his head, there's another sword. And I always look at that card that you're giving too much of yourself.
No.
You never have anything else. And if you're constantly, whether it be the job, the family, I want to go do this, I want to go, if you're not doing anything to fill you, then your energy is going to be depleted, which then is going to zap you.
Indeed. I certainly can see that in the human form. And then when I look at this vibrationally, it's got a slightly different take, because when I am in that alignment and I'm completely under that shower, or as much as I can be, then, of course, I am by default in that expanded space, and everything is being renewed from within and from without. Therefore, I, by default, am giving from overflow. When I'm out of that, then I'm giving just from a human body and a mind, which is very, very different. And more I'm getting to see, and now is the perfect time in our world's history for us to come back and start leading with our energetic selves. What I'm more convinced of than ever, that when we're aligned and when we embrace our uniqueness, then what happens is that roughly we're 80-90% energy first. And then we do the physical thing about 10%. And so the energy stuff, we set up things energetically. We use the energy world. We consciously collaborate with our vibrational selves and allow the heavy work to be done vibrationally. And then we delight in it with the physical. Now, we've got it very much the other way around, and we've all been taught to do that, where we have to work really, really hard. We have to push the body. We have to struggle. We have to hustle and force and push, do all of that. And then if we're lucky, we can squeeze a little bit out at the end. And so for me, it's about turning it all the way around on its head and saying, that's like what it looks like to me is having this enormous universal corporation, massive corporation, bigger than any human thing that we can ever consider. And each department in that universal corporation has the world expert, not just in this moment, but that has ever been, sitting at the heads of all of these departments, full of resources, with loads and loads and loads of employees just raring to go. And you are insisting on doing it yourself. I'm going to get this done. And so all your employees and all these experts are sitting with their feet on the desk waiting, as we go around and then complain how tired we are and that it never can get done. And, and then when I only get this little bit out of it.
When I was working in insurance and we were overloaded with claims, it's like, okay, we're a hamster on a wheel. We're just running along, going absolutely nowhere, just a little hamster on the wheel. And that's exactly how you're describing it. It's like, yeah, you have this task to do and everybody else is just whatever, but you have to keep going.
And so when we can recognize that, in truth, the body is simply a coat, that our unique energetic blueprint is an outpicturing of an intention of our energetic enormity that does not go away. And I think this is the bit that we've got unhooked from, this understanding, is that we remain this universal, energetic, huge being. Universes beyond universes is what I see. way beyond what we understand from a human mind of the universe, we remain that enormous and that connected with that universal vibrational matrix. Huge. And we intend and focus some of that to operate this human suit, a bit like putting a plug in the electric socket. But that doesn't take away the enormity. We don't give that away when we focus this little bit into this suit. And if we can claim that back and recognize that, then we're not doing it here as a human. We're not trying to get everything done by moving this thing around. We actually have this enormity to do it all with, and then we celebrate it with the body.
Okay.
Very different way of living.
Yeah.
And that's when the joy comes in, and that's when the ease comes in, and that's when the flow comes in and the delight comes in, when we are doing it that way around rather than the other way around. And then we can expect ease, then we can expect fun, then we expect joy, because that is who we're designed to be.
And we
that's
can
when
be
it's
more
just
peaceful.
and all of those spectrums of beautiful, those lovely, yummy feelings. You know? And the other side of this is then when we're not in that spectrum of all those things, it's a clue. It's like it's like a love letter calling you home when you're feeling pain or anger or disappointment or frustration, all those ones that most of us would say don't feel so great.
Yeah.
I say it's a love letter. It's a love letter calling you home. It's saying, hello, honey. I'm back. You know, hop back under the shower. Come on. You know, here we come.
Oh, you are a delight. I have a question for you. Have you ever actually walked up to somebody and put your hand on, you're talking to them and you put your hand on their back and you felt energy? I'm not talking about static electricity. I'm talking about you felt energy enter your body.
Oh, all the time.
What is that about?
Like energy, which so I'm very conscious of energy moving through me and interconnecting with another energy being. Well, let me backtrack. This might make it, the way that I see the body is a loosely held matrix of cells. I know it looks like it's solid. I know it looks like bones and blood and tendons and all of those things. But from a vibrational perspective, it's really loosely held and they're moving. These cells are vibrating all the time and moving and humming with their own intercommunication with other vibrations and cells around. It looks like the line between my body and the tree, or my body and the water, or my body and the air is distinct, but in a vibrational sense, I don't see it that way. So when I put my hand onto somebody else's body, to me, what it is that I am using my focused, intentional, vibrational cells to interconnect with other vibrational cells, and I decide, I choose, I focus how that happens. And so if I have an intention to connect with my inner brilliance and be an entrainer, to be like a beacon for this other person, to use my entrained energy to help them to influence their cells to start vibrating in their unique way, then that's the sort of energy that I often experience if I put my hands on people. Is that what you were meaning?
Not exactly, but it's an interesting concept. I mean, it's only happened to me once, and I put
Okay, so do you want to tell me what happened for you?
I put my hand on somebody's back, and I felt this weird. It was like I put my hand there. I'm still talking to them, and I just felt this weird energy enter me. It was just this. I can't even explain it. It was just this weird feeling. And that was it. And I've never had that experience with anybody else. The only other time I felt energy, and that was totally unrelated and not even the same, was when I was doing my first intuitive class, and I felt energy enter through my side. And it was that was expanding as my intuition was going through. But the other one was nothing about intuition. It was talking to a gentleman, and I put my hand on his back, and it was like, what the? It wasn't static. but it was just a really weird sensation.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Well, my guess on that is that because none of what I mean, I know my words make it sound like you're either in that alignment or you're out of it. And it's never totally either way. There's always, I mean,
Yeah.
there's always those little parts of it. And we can be moving in and out is more accurate. Now, ideally, we want to be sort of like this rather than this. This is when life's a roller coaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my guess that it is that in that moment that you put your hand on his back was one of these where you're a little closer here and you were able to feel his cellular or vibrational. You were able to connect at that level. That is what I would suspect was going on.
Okay.
When you did that.
Yeah. I was just curious because it's something that's always, it happened years ago, but it was always, I've never had that experience with anybody else. And it was just kind of like,
why then?
Yeah. So I'm figuring I'm talking to somebody that deals with energy. Hey. So what made you decide to get into doing readings and helping others? I mean,
and helping with energy.
Yeah.
Well, again, I wish I could tell you it was ta-da! It came to me, but it didn't happen like that at all. As I said earlier, I took years at redeveloping my own life, not just with health, but relationships and finances and abundance and joy and all of that sort of stuff. And I think it was just, I had this idea one day of, I wonder if, when I've done it for me, can I do it for other people? Could I do that? And it just started a series of experiments, very quiet experiments where I wasn't even really I would ask someone if they wanted Reiki, because I had done Reiki. But of course I was, I just got a little bolder and a little bolder and a little bolder and needed to obviously deal with my own fear that I was going to hurt somebody because of my childhood experiences. And it just grew gradually and gradually. And then I became clearer. And then eventually I called for volunteers. I actually said, like, this is my story. This is what's going on here. I had been doing hands-on work with people, but then I sort of started to do the online thing and I asked for volunteers. Let me try this. And they did. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
I think I was one of those volunteers.
You were. Well, I think it was the second or third round because I've done quite a bit of that since. Where I started my first one and it was so great that I then did a few more. And then I went on to actually do group ones, started a Facebook group called Linn's Lab, because it's like having a new toy. Like now that I'm embracing this, what can I actually do with it? How can I help with this? And so every now and again, I will pick a subject and invite people. And I think the last time there was about 200 people went through a week of experimenting with me and we just discover what happens. And that just delights me no end. And to sit with somebody and help them to reclaim, I guess, a number of things, reclaim their right to their uniqueness. Mm-hmm. And then to get a taste of remembering it and then to be held in a space while they connect to it is the most exquisite thing to be doing. It is just extraordinary. And I guess I'm pretty fueled with a passion to get that message out to people to claim, because when I notice, it doesn't take much for people for that memory to come back, of, I remember as a child when
mm-hmm.
Then I was told
it's like the whole I can't be intuitive. Why can't you be intuitive? Everybody has intuition. Well, I didn't no, you don't have to go to school. It's there. It's there. I had an argument with one lady when I was doing a reading because her dad wanted to talk to her. She's like, well, I'm not a medium. Well, at this point, I'm not either. And I'm like, I didn't say that to her. I'm just like, she goes, I can't do that. I'm like, still doing her reading. I'm like, your dad, he just would not let up. I'm like, he wants you to talk to you. No. I'm like, just give me your hands. So reluctantly, I became a medium at that moment and I did connect with her dad. But it was just, she's arguing with me saying, he can't talk to me. He's sitting here chattering in my head. So obviously he thinks you can, you know. I mean, this goes back to, we are taught that you cannot be intuitive. We are taught that you know, my first husband used to call this kind of stuff hokey land. It's all hokey land. Really? No, it's not.
No.
And I mean, if you can't, some people don't want to understand it because there's no explanation. There's no explanation why you can see something differently than I can. I mean, as I tell some people, for me being a medium, I usually feel how they died. That's how they appear to me. They show me how they died, which is the most miserable thing in the world. And I really don't like feeling how they died, because it's not that I'm visually seeing it, I'm actually feeling it.
Yeah.
And for some people, they just get words and everything else. I usually see visually out of their eyes, and I usually feel it. And I will get what they say. But the fact of the matter is, nobody trained me. It just happened. Same thing with the intuition. And I think if we all embraced it instead of being going, oh, no, that's bad, we'd be a little bit better off.
Indeed. And also to add to that, if we can embrace that uniqueness, because what I say is, and look, this is me making this up so that I can try to explain something. If we imagine we've got a timeline, so to speak, and here is 0% and here is 100%. So your energetic blueprint, so your uniqueness, your inner brilliance, is going to sit somewhere on this ratio between earth percentages and spirit percentages. Now, again, this is all made up for me, but just a tool to explain. So you can imagine there are some people that I work with whose energetic uniqueness is very designed for them to be very earthy. And so sometimes I'd say they've got like a 60-40 balance. So they're the sort of people who are going to be much more interested in things earth-based, like building houses, or
the mundane,
or putting out fires, or or whatever.
The mundane of daily living, and not so much the
of what we might perceive as mundane to them,
right?
Because it lights them up. It actually brings them into their aligned space. And then they connect deeply to their 40% through that avenue. And so then you get other people like me, for instance, who's 99%. Do you know? If my 99%, if I don't look after that well, if I'm not aligning with that, I get sick real quick. Because it's not a lot of room,
And then I have to ask, how is your normal daily life? Because, I've been in places and I get things and it's like, I don't want to hear that. But how do you function in your daily life? I don't want to use that stupid analogy of a switch, but I mean, are you picking up information constantly?
Well, I have, yes is the answer to that. However, the stronger my alignment muscles have come, the more I entrain my environment around me. So I used to find going out anywhere just so overwhelming, and not just energetically, but physically, smells and sounds and go over. But now, because my alignment muscles are so much stronger, when I enter, say, a shopping mall or something like that, I'm very strong in my alignment, and then I get to choose what I do with that. So I can have my bubble of alignment that I'm walking around in. One of my favorite games lately is to connect to everyone else's inner brilliance as I'm walking through the shopping mall, and is to scan everything energetically and to do my shopping energetically and vibrationally. So I'm choosing everything via vibration. So that's a very different experience, because I'm aligning my muscles. And that's what I mean is that, that's my main practice. It's my main job. No matter what else I'm doing, is to keep myself aligned. And as I feel myself coming out, my priority is, okay, nothing else matters right now other than me finding my way back to living in that alignment. And as I do that, then I have extraordinary things happen. Well, it seems extraordinary from the human perception. I mean, from the vibrational perception, of course, it's just normal and natural what I can do. And things like, this is a lovely example. I have a grandson and we go off and do all sorts of adventures together. And I was going through tunnels with him. It's like a rock climbing experience, and you get to go through these tunnels. And the first time I did it with him, I wasn't fully aligned, and I realized later I was running a story of, oh, that's very small. Am I going to be able to? And oh, I think that's going to hurt my back if I do that. So guess what happened? The next week I was sore, and then a light bulb went off to me. I said, I did that with my body. I didn't do it with my energy. So the next time we went, I lined it all up and I went through energetically, and then I ended up on the top of things and down the bottom of things. And then I was on a roll. And then we went to parks, and I'm climbing all the rope things way up, with all the little kids and all these other adults sort of sitting around, in the grey hair, and I'm up the top. It's like, and then I was at another park on the weekend, and one of the women who was part of the group, she said, oh, I love it. I love it when you turn up. You're such great value, she says, because you're all over the place and I can sit down.
Nice.
Because, I'm coming down the slides and going all out doing whatever the kids were doing. I was right in the middle of it,
Hey, as long as you're having a good time, that's
it was brilliant. It's a blast. I love it, just love it. So, and that's the proof of it, when we're coming from that vibrational space, then things that we think we can't do become easy on any level.
I guess my question to you now would be, what would you recommend somebody trying to get into that vibration, that they can raise their vibration? I mean, what is a quick, and I don't want to say quick fix, but if they're having a super stressful day, where they're just overwhelmed and they're over their skis and they're near tears or whatever.
Oh yeah.
How do you get a person like that, some kind of quick Zen moment?
Yeah. Well, yes. There are lots of quick ways of doing that once you have the foundation in place. Okay. Is probably the most truthful answer to that.
That's what we're looking for.
Yes. So when you have a really clear understanding of how the energy works, you have a good understanding of what your inner brilliance is, and you really taste it, so you really know it and remember it, and like turn all the lights on because they've been off for a while. You get them all going so you can recognize that place again. Then there's lots and lots of tips and tricks that you can use to find your way back there. And I like to look at it, it's a bit like a really grassy meadow. Now, the first person that walks through that is going to create a bit of a path, but then the next time it walks through, it creates a better path, and the next time it walks through, you get a better path, until it's a very clearly defined path. And it's just like that. All we're doing is rewriting the pathway, because the stories have had us going off on this direction for our pathway. And now we're making some new pathways that we can. So, and the more that we do that, the easier and the more recognizable they become to get back to. The other great thing to know is that there is a natural buoyancy process in this. So you were designed with this unique blueprint, and there's buoyancy in that. In other words, you're designed to be in that. So no matter how far you come away from that, when we get some movement coming through, there is a tide wanting to pull you back in. So the length of time you've been practicing, so let's say for me it was 40 odd years to get out here. I don't need 40 years to get back, to get my muscle back, because all I need to do here is loosen some of that contortion, get a bit of movement going in there, get some space and get some breath to allow the natural tide, the natural pull, allow the elastic to pull you back. It's been stretched out, it's being held out. So we need to let it go enough to let it spring you back. So all of those understandings, I think, are the base foundation to know that you are never completely disconnected, for
Mm-hmm.
starters. It's still there. And you do have that natural buoyancy factor that is waiting for you to bring you back. You are being called. You are constantly being held in that love shower well-being. It's simply we're looking at the shadow rather than looking at the light. And so in all of that understanding, what I suggest, and there's loads of ways you can do that, is to get some movement happening in the rigidity. Now, depending on your unique style, you find out what works best for you. First of all, we need to be able to recognize we're there. And this is why I was saying, when you recognize and re-experience being aligned to your uniqueness, really experience that and remember it, it's going to be easier to recognize when you're not there.
And what you're saying makes total sense, because if you think about it, anxiety and fear and all those things are triggered. So if you're in your in alignment and you're triggered, you're gonna definitely go back out here, because this is something you've grown accustomed to. That's something that you've learned. And so then you have to release that and make your way back. So that makes sense, because the negative self-talk zaps that energy and pulls you out of alignment.
Look, I agree with that totally. The hitch that I often see is that there's a cultural story that goes something like releasing old habits, releasing old thought forms is tough work.
Oh, it is.
And I want to debunk that and say we don't necessarily have to be working with the habit or the story of the habit or the words of the habit, or even get to the core of how it was set up.
Okay.
And even, in fact, often when we go looking for that, we actually get ourselves tightened up even more. Okay. So that's a subtle change. When you notice you're not standing under that shower, understand that whatever you're standing in that's out of that is a cultural story. It's an arbitrary story. No matter how true it may feel, if you can help yourself to remember it's actually an arbitrary story, and from a different perspective, if you change where you're looking at it from, even you won't believe it. I know in the moment you do, but I think we've all had that experience where we go, what was I thinking?
Well, that's kind of why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So
better too.
So that's right. So all we need to do, if we can change how we react when we notice that we're not where we want to be, so then all we need to do is get some movement into that. Not fight with it, not try and pull it apart, not delve into it, but instead get ourselves loosening off. Now, for some, that can be remembering to just love the space. Just to say, oh, I know you. Oh, so sorry that you're here again. Come on. Maybe that. It could be, or a combination of any of these. It could be getting up and shaking all over and making lots of sounds. It could be dancing. It could be writing. It could be going outside and sitting on the earth. What we're wanting is a circuit breaker, and in that circuit breaker, getting some energetic and possibly physical movement to shift where you are, because your answer vibrationally is not here. It's a totally different vibration. So when you are in that aligned space, totally different vibration, you are not going to find that alignment from here. Okay. By default, because this is out of alignment.
Right,
this is contracted. Right. So we need to, instead of trying to find it here, let's loosen this. Let's play with this. Let's do whatever to allow that space, to allow the buoyancy to take over. And once we're here, if we want to, if it feels right to, then we could have a think about it, or then we can theorize about it. But often what happens when you're here is that just disappears.
It makes sense. It makes total sense. It does. I know you were working on your website not too long ago. You still am? Oh, okay. Are you doing readings just in Australia, or are you doing readings all over the world?
No. I only work online. So I work all over the world. And yes, I am reworking. I'm looking at some packages. One of the things beautiful, one of my new expanded things that have come on board is that my grandson had a physical accident and should have ended up very, very bruised. Everyone was telling him, the medicos, the hospital, and all of that sort of thing. And I was with him. And so I was holding his head as we were traveling. And I guess just out of the sheer focus of wanting to help him because, he's my baby, I found a whole new way of working with the body. So I went into the cellular level, went in with his cells, moved his cells around literally between the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
And he had no bruising whatsoever, none whatsoever. It was pretty extraordinary. And so then I had the question, well, if I can do that for him, can I help others do it? And I've had two lovely volunteers and both of them, one of them felt it instantly, slept really well and woke the next morning feeling great, and then emailed me a week or so later to say it was still feeling great. The other one felt wonderful afterwards and the next day, and I'm waiting for a follow-up with her. So that's a new thing I'm going to be offering in a package form, because there's a lot of work beforehand, during and after in that one. But also, yes, working. There's other things that have come on board too, where I hesitate to call it mediumship because sometimes it's people, sometimes it's animals, sometimes they're not even dead, as we would think dead.
Right.
It could be the tree in your backyard or a tree from a garden you used to have. So it's quite a broader, I'm not sure, I still don't have a name for that, but that's on the new website coming. Plus the normal sort of energy scans. And by that, I mean, helping you to recognize your inner brilliance and how to connect to that. And plus there are courses in development as well, helping just those tips and tricks on, okay, I'm out of alignment, what do I do now type thing.
So since your website's not functioning right now, where can people find you?
Okay, I'm on Facebook, so Linn Purdon, you will see me there, Designed for Ease. And I have two groups, Whole Being, Business and Life, which is my main group, and then Lynn's Lab when I run an experiment. But you also can get me on email at linnpurdon@gmail.com, which is really easy to remember. And I'm hoping the website's going to be live very soon.
Well, as long as I get an email address and Facebook,
you can find me. Yeah.
So then I have to pose the question, was it better to embrace yourself, your true self, than twisting yourself up? I think we already covered that, but, was it better to embrace yourself?
Yeah, it was certainly better. It's certainly better now to do it. I had an experience some months ago where I was involved at looking at the energy of some land. And in that experience, I recognized that the buildings had been used for what would have been called a mental institution at the time. And it was operating when I was a child.
Ooh.
And the practices were really horrendous. And I realized as part of this working with the energy that had I insisted on talking about what I could see, that is where I would have ended up.
How terrifying was that?
It's only about 20 minutes away from my current home, and this is the town where I grew up. So I would have ended up there. So in retrospect, I can say it was better. It was better for me not to talk about it at that time.
I can't imagine what you would have gone through had you been in that place. So it's much. It's interesting that you feel you had been put into a mental hospital, where I've seen other people. It's like, well, my parents had me exercised. Why? Once again, why are you trying to quash your child's gifts?
Oh, indeed.
But I'm glad, and I'm sure your gifts, you with your kids, you were more open about it for them if they experience stuff, and your grandson. So that's a good thing. If we can continue to pass that information on along to the younger generations. I have a friend who's a medium. She was in the second podcast, and she's got a son, and she's like, yeah, I look at him and I see,
Yeah.
oh, well, that's grandpa or uncle some such and such or grandpa such and such.
Oh,
So she is fostering his
yes.
gifts. And
Hmm.
that's something that if we can do that, that's going to be an awesome thing as we go forward.
Oh, totally. And I energetically, telepathically spoke constantly with my grandson before he was conceived,
Nice.
while he was in utero, and continue to today. We operate telepathically as well as use words.
Well, I want to thank you, Lynn. This has been a delightful time. And hopefully, hopefully you get some people reaching out to you because I think it's fascinating what you do. So thank you for taking some time to talk to me today. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, it's a great pleasure. I've had great fun.
It was fun.